Before we get started today, I just want to recognize our sponsors who help make today possible. Lois Mans with Farmers Insurance, Greg Mans with Upright Construction, Adam Dregge with Complete Realty Solutions, Jason Hudson, Red Maples Construction, and our newest vendor, Nate Tomlin with the Tomlin Heating and Air. If you guys know anybody who has a question about real estate that we could solve, please contact us here at Restore STL so we could talk. If you want to wake up, take control of your life, and use real estate effectively to build a purposeful future, please check out our upcoming arena programs. And now, today's episode of The Kevin Duragi Show. All right. Hello, friends, and welcome to season 3 of the Kevin Duragi Show. Season 3. So that's awesome. It is awesome to be back here. It is awesome having this time to talk and love with you on different subjects. So this is great. As you know, I'm a little bit of a number nerd. If you know what that means, it means like anytime I have a closing, so I'm in real estate. So anytime there's a closing, I try to find a date that is either significant historically or the numbers get along together, like threes and eights, and just I'm a little weird that way, but I do like the significance that dates and numbers have. And today, the day that you will see this, the day that I am filming this, is the 23rd of February. And the reason why this day is important to me, because it is a day that I could say broke me, but also made me. So today is the 10-year anniversary of my dad's passing. When that happened 10 years ago, my business melted away, and it really just was catastrophic because I lost my dad. My dad was, I didn't know it at the time, but my best friend. So today was really bad in a professional sense, but because of it, I'm able to be a lot more effective talking to people going through different issues, right? The good days, the bad days, etc., which kind of brings up the topic that I want to talk about today and also on the season 3 opening of the Kevin Duragi show as a whole. So if you haven't heard of this before, so there is uh, King Suji. So King Suji is the Japanese art of broken pottery. So what happened is it was in the 5th century that a Japanese shogun just means like military dictator, apparently broke his Chinese tea set. And so it's a bad day, right? When you break your Chinese tea set. So he actually called on all the artisans, so all the people who knew trades, and said, hey, I want to fix my teapot. And it sounds funny, but so he wanted to put together his teapot. It reminds me of Humpty Dumpty. So he brings in these artisans, and some tried to come in with staples, and it just wasn't working. And then they came up with this idea of lacquering, or basically soldering the pieces back together. So what happened was this broken teapot came back together, and all the breaks actually ended up being gold soldering and actually added more to the piece than it originally had, right? So to say it in a different way, right? It was the beauty actually came from the breaks. The value actually came from the imperfections. So let's take this concept of King Suji and apply it to us, to real life, because that's kind of like what we do here. So I remember when I was a kid, so call it around 10 or so, because that sounds about the right height for a kid. But we used to live on this, we had a little slant on our hill. And I used to ride my tricycle down, and I thought it'd be cool to ride it down and jump off and slide down the grass. And I did this for many, many times, right? Many days I'd come and, think like my favorite action hero, MacGyver, whatever it was at the time. And this particular morning, I remember doing it, and it was early in the day, so there was still dew on the grass. I came racing down, slid, and apparently I slid harder and faster than normal. And I ended up sliding underneath the chain link fence. And my leg basically got caught from my ankle all the way up to my groin was basically sliced with this fence, chain link fence there. Got pulled out. I was crying, wailing, all that stuff. Got pulled out, and it was a big deal. It was a big scar. But here's the thing, I'm now a 40 something year old man compared to a 10-year-old kid. And that big scar at that time now is maybe just a little bitty mark. So it's kind of interesting that the scars of our past actually become the birthmarks of our future self. So let's take that concept, right? The Kintsugi and once a big scar and now it's just like a little birthmark, something not even recognizable. And now let's put this amongst some of our friends. So I love this story. So Danny Trejo, if you guys know who Danny is, he is the rough and grumble guy that you see usually as a villain in a lot of movies that you probably watched. So let's rewind and look a little bit at his story. So around age 10, he got arrested for the first time. So the same time I'm riding my tricycle down a hill, this guy is getting arrested. So age 10 starts getting arrested. So he's a brawler, he's a fighter. That's how he got a lot of his scars and marks on his face. That was from boxing and being in a bunch of fights. He eventually gets arrested for armed robbery. He had assault, he had drug charges, ended up selling, I think, sugar or flour to a federal agent. So anyway, he gets caught, thrown in jail. Not just little jail, but the big bad jails. And just really he was headed for downward part of his life, right? And then what happens in there is the 1968 Cinco de Mayo riot. So this is at Soledad State Prison. So this is a rough place. And he takes a rock and he throws it at one of the officers, one of the prison guards, and severely like almost killed the guy, right? So he was actually on trial to go into potentially death row, right? This was an act that basically was pushed him there. So he is in solitary, which means closed box, no light, and he's just in this spot. And he does, well, what I would expect a lot of us would do at a certain point. He cries out to God and he says, God, if you help me out of this, I will help somebody every day and I will say your name every day. Like, hey, I will make sure that I'm helping and I will make sure that God, through his son Jesus, is something that I bring up every day. And then as it turns out, he gets all the charges were dropped. Out of 3,000 inmates, nobody saw anything. Charges were not pressed, and he was actually released in 1969. So the year later, he was actually released from prison. He started off helping by working as a counselor for substance abuse, right? Hey, don't go down the path I did. Let's do this, get clean, be sober, things like that. Because of his boxing background, they brought him in to actually help some of the actors and the extras in one of some of the movies. And he actually became an extra and going into the film Runaway Train. So he ends up getting into the movie. And then because of his looks and his attitude, he ends up starting as an extra and then becomes more of a leading role throughout his history and just beloved by all of us, right? Because he's this rough guy, but with a heart of gold. Turns out he has a clause in any of his contracts now. It's called his villainous clause. So anytime he plays a bad guy that does bad things, his character must die or have consequences. So like go into jail or do like because he believes that he doesn't want teenagers or kids to think that bad guys can win. So whenever he's a bad guy, he either ends up dying or he ends up facing consequences. So just what a cool story there about some things, his physical scars actually end up bringing him to success and also a relationship with Jesus. And those breaks that once were there ends up actually being the parts that are actually beloved by, millions of people. So that's cool. I just think it's a great story of redemption. So now let's look at somebody we do know. I don't know Danny personally, but let's talk about our friend Kelly. So Kelly Rhymes was actually on our show in season one. She came on, and I actually didn't know this at the time because I spoke with her. We were at some conferences together. I think she's just a beautiful woman, but I did not know that she was facing scarring alopecia. So she is bald. I just assumed that was a look that she went with because she wore it so well. Turns out it was this disease called scaling alopecia. And when she tells her story, at first it just started being a little bald spot in the back of her hair, in the back of her head. And then as she would brush her hair or bring her comb through, more and more hair started coming out with it. And she talks about this as she was starting to lose her identity. right? Because some of our look or our feel is in how we look or how we portray ourselves. And then as this was going and more of the hair fell out, she was feeling like she was losing her identity, a sense of herself. Um, and she was also seeing that other people were starting to reject her, right? And there was this sense of rejection that she was getting from society because she was not what a typical woman should look for. And what she found was looking inside here and reclaiming her identity through becoming confident and liberating herself from the social pressures, all this to kind of just claim her identity. And she's not being rejected. She's actually transcending this stuff. And what's interesting, especially with her story, is her embracing of the things that make her unique actually are the things that bring her authentic relationships. So she talks about this on her podcast, the Bougie Baldy podcast. So when we actually interviewed her, geez, maybe what, year and a half, 2 years ago, she was talking about starting this podcast. And now it's a real thing. It is out there. And she's actually helping many, many women fight the social norms, right? The pressures that society is bringing out there, the sense of rejection, claiming your independence. And I think for her, it was the idea that she could be bold and beautiful, not just woe is me, this happened, but in fact, embracing it. And she is this confident, beautiful person. I love how, so she talks about this in her podcast, but it's the authentic, how she showed up authentically, right? Bald and beautiful attracts the genuine people, the genuine relationships, right? So you don't just go into those little petty conversations. You're able to talk about better and deeper things when you come with your authentic self. So, Kelly, I love your story. I love you. I love everything you're doing. I listen to your podcast, and I just think it's wonderful how you are turning around and helping bring everybody up. And it's through, I mean, we're saying scars here, but it is scarring alopecia, just happens to work there. But it's something that could have been catastrophic or really just bringing you down actually is the part that brings you up and inspires others to be better, or at least embracing the stuff that isn't good. So I want to, gosh, this is a great story. It's actually here of a St. Louis native, and I was fortunate to be able to hear him speak. Now I guess it's been a few years, but the story of John O'Leary. So if you don't know who this is, John, when he was 9, saw other kids playing around with fire. So he did the same. It was in his house. He was playing with matches and gasoline. And if you know where this is going, gasoline blows up, right? So he's playing with this stuff in the garage. It blows up and he burns his body. He's thrown against the wall and has massively burned. I think 100% of his skin has been burned. He's in the hospital. He wakes up and his mom is there and he asks, Mom, am I going to be okay? I can't even imagine being a parent dealing with this. This has got to be so hard. Instead of just comforting John, what she says is, John, do you want to die? And John pauses for a while and goes, No, Mom, I want to live. Can you imagine being a parent going, not, oh, honey, you'll be okay. Oh, honey, this will be fine. John, do you want to die? No, Mom, I want to live. In that moment, talk about being forged, right? A forging moment, or the idea of taking these broken pieces, right? Because his body is broken. He's burned. I think he ended up with 99% of scar tissue, or just crazy, crazy thing here. But he decides that he wants to live. 20 years later, crazy story, right? In the interim, Jack Buck gets involved. But 20 years later, his parents write a book, mostly for their friends and family, about what they called overcoming the odds, right? The fact that John ended up not only surviving, but thriving. So they gave it mostly to friends and family. And then those people turn around and tell more people about it. And they end up selling over 100,000 copies. And as John is embracing these breaks, right, these scars, he starts wanting to tell his story. I say wanting. It wasn't like it was easy, but his first speaking gig was to a Girl Scout group. And I think there's like 3 members to this Girl Scout group. And John goes in to talk. But just because there's only 3 people doesn't mean it's not nervous. He's in this parking lot. I'm assuming he's getting sick, just feeling horrible, because it's really awkward just like Kelly losing her hair. It's really awkward to walk in and be so vulnerable and talking about those breaks and those scars of your life. But once he started embracing that, 20 years later, right from that first talk, he's now have spoken in front of millions of people, myself being one of them, like 49 states and dozens of countries, worldwide. Just it's crazy when you actually lean in and dig into those scars, those forging moments, or what here the Kintsugi, those breaks, right? Those now what are becoming the golden solders. In 2016, he wrote his first book, On Fire: The Seven Choices to Ignite a Radically Inspired Life. Came out to be an instant #1 bestseller. He wrote a second book, In All, Rediscovering the Childlike Wonder to Unleash Inspiration, Meaning, and Joy. And guess what? Another instant nationwide bestseller. Uh, and now he spent decades trying to hide from this trauma, trying to hide from his story. Now he travels the world telling it. He's written 2 books, and in 2025, he came out with the movie Soul on Fire, which is now catapulting his story out there to everybody, right? Worldwide. And it's all through those breaks. It's all through the bad days, but going on and helping others do that. So he had kind of a few points that I really, really love that I want to share with you. One, our life is sacred and an awesome gift. Two, we get to choose our mindset in every situation, no matter how bleak it seems. Right? Remember him back in the hospital bed? Mom, I want to live. Think of how much pain. Everything hurts. Everything hurts. Mom, I want to live. And then also together we can change the world, starting with our own. So once we understand those scars that we have, right, that's our past self scars. Those become the birthmarks for our future self. I love it. And John, if you're listening, like, I think if there was a title, it would be a motivational speaker that you are. But truly, I think anybody who has heard your story, listened to you, read a book, saw the movie, I think we would say you're truly an inspired leader. And I think it's amazing what you have done. So thank you, John. So I wanted to take a few of those stories, right? Danny and John and Kelly, there's something physical you could see there, right? Yes, there's a lot of mental trauma behind it, but it's a physical scar or an issue that we see. Now, I want to talk about somebody that it's more inside. So, not all scars are visible. There's a lot of people who deal with PTSD and a lot of mental health stuff. So, when I was asking my wife, and she was like, Kevin, why don't you talk about my cousin? And I was like, okay. Uh, so I didn't know all this story until I called her, and actually I turned around and started listening to a bunch of her YouTube stuff. But my wife's cousin, Rebecca, has an amazing story, and I got permission to tell you some of it. But gosh, I really hope you guys go out and listen to some of these stories yourself. When Becca, I know her as Becca. When Becca was, I guess, coming to age, right? She rebelled just like any of our teenagers, people. And she is ridiculously smart. But what happened is when she had her first kid, she started getting hooked on pain meds and then kind of got hooked and hooked. But pain meds are expensive. And as that started going up, she wanted to find something else that she could use. So she reached out and got started and got hooked on heroin. And really, guys, there's some drugs it's really hard to come back from. Heroin and meth are two of the ones in my mind that are really hard to, once you get hooked, it's very hard to get out of it. And she ended up getting hooked on heroin. And she thought she was hiding it well. And she even had moments of clarity where she's in the bathroom, shooting up with her daughter, right in the same room, but she just needed to get her fix. And she's been in and out of the rehabs and detoxes, and it just never really caught on. One of the times she was in rehab, and you couldn't have your fix with drugs, she was looking for men's attention. So it's not just sexual, but it's just you need to feel good, right? You need to find your fix. As this is going on and she's going through sobriety or trying to go through sobriety, she ends up finding somebody else. She gets pregnant, but sobriety wasn't clicking on yet, right? The addiction is very, very powerful if you think you could do it alone. So she is pregnant and now she's out living on the streets, right? She's living out of her car. She's homeless. She's pregnant. She's with this guy at the time. And then she started using again. And she ended up using until I think she was about 7 months pregnant. Um, what's odd about this is she didn't talk about this in her story, but I remember she talks about getting in a car accident, and I actually remember that because she called us and asking us to pick up her daughter from preschool. So actually, my wife and I went and picked her up because it was close to us, and she came to pick her up, and she wasn't there, right? In St. Louis, it's hot, yet she's wearing long sleeves and she's just all over the place. We didn't know what was going on at the time, but man, Becca was fighting her own demons and it was addiction and issues like that. But so she goes through this time and it got darker, right? She was losing her will to live. Her family eventually took her daughter from her because needed to be responsible. And here she is trying to be a mom and trying to work and trying to still get her fix. And it just was really, really difficult. Became homeless. She didn't care. She was willing to do anything for money, primarily steal. She didn't do any prostitution. But, it's just one of those, hey, I just need to do whatever I need to. She even rented her car to a dealer. Like, what a crazy story. Like, then, I mean, actually, Turo could work. So, props to that. But it is awesome to see what that story is, right? She was breaking and getting deeper and deeper into this world. And she talks about she's living in a bad part of town. She's trying to go through all this stuff. One of her stories is she talks about seeing this like little neon cat, I guess, that a neighbor had. So she went over and started talking to her, and the neighbor started telling her about Jesus. And it didn't quite click in, but it was just something as silly as seeing a little light, which started a conversation, which planted a seed or watered a seed that was in her mind, in her heart, that there's something bigger. So, fast forward through some of this, I remember my wife and I praying over her oldest son, Liam, that, hey, I pray, Lord, that this son is okay, that the drugs, that the rehab, that all this detoxing doesn't have any issues. And he turns out to be a healthy and happy young boy now. So 7 months pregnant, she decided to become sober. And this time it's starting to stick, right? So in this path, so she becomes sober, actually sober. And uh, I just, knowing a little bit of the story inside it, but then also looking back through how she tells it. So she started a cleaning company. So her son is born. She now has two kids. She started a cleaning company. She threw out an ad there. She got a client, and that client actually is the root cause of what brought her to Christ, right? The parts that really started soldering her broken pieces together. And the way she said it to me was, God gave me a cleaning company so I could meet this lady, so this lady would bring me to Christ. And that's what a crazy story. So now she's sober, she's clean, she's married, she's got three healthy kids. She runs a business, and now she is a total advocate for Jesus. So if we take this Kintsugi concept, right? She is now welded together with this gold. She has a story and a redemption arc that is just, talk about being able to reach the people in the broken places. And if she was perfect, it's a lot harder to relate to those people. But us other broken people, right? We get the fact that the broken is actually what brings us together. It's the imperfections, right? It's the problems that really make us relatable. And Becca's story is just an amazing story and testament of some of those scars inside, right? I wish I was dead. I wish, I lost my will to live, but then turned around and getting out of those clutches of addiction. Awesome. Great job, Becca. That is truly amazing. And we'll also print out some links there for their stories because it really is something that's awesome. I remember I did a talk to, actually, through Mary Kane. She did a talk for narcs, lose your narcissist type stuff. And I did a talk, and it was about going through, though I walk through the valley of death, your rod and your staff comfort me. And I liken that through some of these hard moments, right? Those feelings where we are this broken pottery, using our forging analogy, right? This is the time that we're in the heat, right? We're melting, we're feeling all this pressure, and it sucks. But it's what our next steps really do that change it, right? So when we're in that valley of death, we don't sit down and die. We keep moving. Some days it's just a step. Some days it's two steps. But once we get out of those trials and tribulations, right, there is the green pastures, right? There is rest and renewal that's on the other side. But here's where it gets interesting. Once we are on the other side, once we're recovered, it is our jobs as leaders to go over to the people in the trouble, right? Going through the valley of death and helping them out. I'm not saying handouts, but it's hand ups, right? That's where we become leaders to be able to turn around and help those other people going through the trauma. If we look at the people we just talked about, Danny's done many causes, right, to help people get out of addiction, right, substance abuse, etc. Kelly started her podcast, right, the bougie, baldy bougie podcast to show that it's okay to have scarring alopecia. It's okay not to look like everybody else. Soul on Fire, John O'Leary, right, wrote the books, starred in the movie. Why? And does now international speaking to show people, hey, look, this happened, but this is on the other side. Hey, my body was burned 100%. Why are you on the couch? Get up, tell your story, do something. Becca, hey, I was homeless, pregnant, and hooked on heroin. And now here I am, a successful person helping other people. Guys, these are great stories about walking through the valley of death and coming around and helping other people gain their senses and come out. People care. Now, I just have to highlight a few of these things because my story is very similar, right? So my first major break when I was in North Carolina, and I talk about it in A Tale of Two Coaches, but that's where I first had my major break and I thought I was broken. I thought I could never come back or really be anything of any substance to anybody. And that's when I got baptized into a cult. So if you don't know that story, go back and listen to it. But I felt like I failed my family, my friends, and I felt that I failed God through some of these pursuits. But guess what? Now that I'm open and honest about that, it actually brings a lot of people in. Like I had a reason to say, you know what? If this, religion thing, I'm out. Instead, it really makes me embrace the relationship that actually is actually the intent of what religions are. So it really makes it an honest and authentic relationship, not a religion. So when I first started in real estate, right, I was struggling to make it work, right, as a solopreneur, doing everything, swinging a hammer, marketing, phone calls, everything. And then I started having success, but that's also when my dad got pancreatic cancer, which today is the 10-year anniversary of his passing. And actually, just before this, Jake was like, "Oh, my condolences." And it's like, "Oh, man, today is a great day, right? My dad got to go to heaven." And now anytime I pray, our Father who art in heaven, it just means a little bit more to me. I get it. My dad is in heaven, and it just makes things have a little bit more meaning to me. But yeah, it was 2 years and just things when my business melted away and talk about hard for me with my kids, with my wife, with my family. I mean, it was difficult. I was lost. I was trying to find out where I could work. I tried to buy a fun park, just things weren't clicking. And it just was a really troubled time for me. But I started building back up and I teamed up with some other people. And then I started doing all the things, right? I started doing a lot of rehabs at that time. And it grew and grew. And then that broke. And then I became a coach and a speaker and I started those things. And then that whole place that gave me my new identity, right? All those new things that I was like, oh, I'm so thankful. We split. We went a different direction. So now I feel like I lost my identity, kind of like what Kelly was talking about. My identity was with this group and now it's not there. And it took a while. It also was COVID. It was all these things that added up. And you feel like you're walking through the valley of death sometimes. Like, why am I here? And then I was found. And when I say found, I'm actually going to use the word I found my purpose. I care for people. And in this process, when we buy distressed housing, when we do these things, we're in like people's kitchen's table, usually on their worst day, right? Somebody is sick, somebody just died, their financial world is in a tumble, somebody got a divorce, right? We got to move, we're going to assisted living, we can't afford this anymore, right? Something happens and it's not a good day. And now I get to be an ambassador, right? To say, hey, I understand that today's a bad day, but come on, the good stuff is on the other side. Like, keep walking. Don't. entertain those ideas of suicide. Don't entertain those ideas of what bad days can bring. Don't go down that rabbit hole of sex, drugs, rock and roll, right? Don't do that stuff. It's destructive. Guess what? There is a better way, right? You might feel like you're a broken pile of pottery, but guess what? If you keep moving and you come together, it's actually going to be what brings you your uniqueness, and your truest perfection is through the imperfections. It's amazing, right? And this purpose really helps you define what your story is, right? And it's a story of overcoming. We're not victims, right? We're heroes. And then once you learn that a hero's journey, right, you have to have those troubles so you could actually get bigger, right? So you get stronger. So those other petty issues don't amount to much, right? Because you were bigger, right? You're soldered together with gold. In the story of overcoming, my purpose now has more people. So, Restore STL is our company, and it's purpose driven, and it's bringing together the right people, Jake and Chris, right? These are like the pieces that we need to really go out there and build a bigger business, right? To build a business that can go out and help more people, right? Be the guide and be an instrument to help these people through their bad days. So, guys, just as we're wrapping up here, I just want to say thank you again for your love and support of our show, The Kevin Duragi Show. If you are doing anything in real estate here in St. Louis, please think of us here at Restore STL. But really, I just want you to know that we care for you. To Becky and Kelly and John, guys, your stories are inspirational. The fact that you have gone through so much and those breaks actually become the gold. I am impressed with your stories of how you have overcome. And it really underlines our point of this Kintsugi, but also the scars of our past are the birthmarks of our future self. Guys, I love you. Have a great day, and I'll talk to you soon. Hey friends, it's Kevin. I just want to say thank you to Greg Mans of Upright Construction. Greg does all of my exteriors for siding, roofs, fascia, soffit, gutters, all that stuff. He is fantastic. He is on it. He works well with insurance. He works well with investors like me and homeowners. Highly personable, huge customer service. You're going to love him. Huge personality. So Greg said if you mention Kevin Duragi Show, that he'll knock off 10% of your labor bill. So how is that? That's fantastic. Greg is old school, so call or text Greg at 314-374-1343. And if you're going to do it upright. Thank you to Red Maples Construction. Yeah, Jason Hudson and Dave have been fantastic. They do all the rehabs when we come in and flip these houses, either for rentals or for repair, rentals or rehab. They're the guys that come in and I know it's taken care of because they're on it. So I just want to say thank you for what you guys do. They even do residential housing. So if you have something else that you're doing, they will help you out there as well. Give them a holler, 314-312-2147. Thanks again, guys. Hey friends, it's Kevin. I want to talk about one of my friends. We go way back, all the way back to episode 17, Adam Draghi, CRS Realty, or Complete Realty Services. So I am so proud of Adam and his team. Like, they've created this wonderful world of agents and property managers. They handled a bunch of my rentals. They do a great job. They communicate. They're honest. They can just take care of things. So if you're looking at building your portfolio, whether it's as an agent, whether it's managing your portfolio, I cannot tell you that they are fantastic anymore. Like, they do a great job. And I'm so proud of Adam and what he's done with his team. So guys, give him a holler at 314-325-8328. I just want to thank one of our tribe members here, Lois Mans with Farmers Insurance. You know the catchy jingle, we are farmers, bum-ba-dum-bum-bum-bum-bum. Well, Lois has been covering my assets for almost 8 years now. So every time I buy a house, a flip, or a rental, Lois is there making sure everything is okay for me. She has been fantastic. Her team is highly focused on customer service. I use her a lot for all the homes, but you could also try out her life insurance, her cars, her home, her auto. She's got all those ways to help you. They are now also brokers, so they could also, if they're not the best price, they could go out and find a better price for you out there as well. So Lois, thank you so much for all that you do. And on top of all that, she is in the top 1% of all farmers agents worldwide. So amazing job, Lois. You guys need to check her out. You guys can get a hold of her at 314-283-1981. Mention me in the show and she will give you a free quote. I actually don't talk about my real estate business all that much. I own Restore STL. We buy, fix, and sell houses. We believe in home ownership right here in St. Louis, Missouri. If you're interested in getting involved in real estate and make a difference, we're looking for agents, we're looking for investors, we're looking for private lenders. We're just putting the pieces together. So if you know somebody that needs to sell and needs to know their options, check us out. Visit our website, it's restorestl.com, or just reach out to me. For this and other information, visit our show notes for all the vendor information. All right, let's go.